All right. This is going to be an exciting one today, though.
Did
Yes.
do you know what I'm so excited about is I have absolutely no idea what you're going to talk
Oh,
about.
that's right. I never told you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just say this. I was inspired by some super good ghost stories that were submitted, that were emailed to us. And Lucy, I don't know if you even saw, I know you saw Gingers.
Do we have other ones?
But we have other ones. And
How did I miss those?
I'm so glad you did. And actually I was like saving them this morning. There's a woman who wrote in whose name is Eltunny. It's spelled like Altina, but she said its first name is pronounced Altunny, which is super. It almost sounds like a Native American. I don't know.
Lovely name.
It is really pretty, and I've never heard of it before. And she submitted some super spooky stories. And because she did it using the contact form on the One Scott One Not website, she was like, I can't attach pics. So I emailed her back. I'm so glad you didn't see these emails. And I was like,
see them.
I know, which makes it so much better. So then I was like, you can actually reply to this, like, and then attach the photos because I need to see the photos. The stories are so good. So she did, and she did attach the photos, and one of them is fucked up. It's so good.
Can I open that up while
No, you can't.
What?
It'll ruin the surprise.
Oh
no! I'll share my screen so that people that watch it on YouTube can actually see it when I talk about it. So she did.
Even better.
She replied back with the photos, and then she had like more tidbits about it, and I was like, yes. So I have her emails plus the ones from Ginger. She has spooky, ghosty stories as well.
We promised last week we were going to read them out, and then we didn't last week.
Yeah, so I am
teased you
doing
all.
that. Yes.
So we're going to read them out this week, which actually I'm really glad you reminded me of that, because I've got the memory of a goldfish and I totally forgot him.
You're pretty dumb.
I know.
I'm just kidding. That's the kind of stuff my kids say to me all day. So I was just being my children right there. Actually, you're pretty dumb, Mom.
Do you know, it makes it really handy when I'm watching TV shows that I decide to watch something that I've already watched, because it's like I'm watching it from the start again. And I'll even go, so me and my son were watching, this is a total side note, me and my son were watching Line of Duty, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's this British cop drama, and I've watched all of the seasons. I've watched them all, but he hadn't. So we watched from the start, and I was literally sitting there on the edge of my seat going, oh my God, that just happened. And my son was like, you've seen it already. And I'm like, I totally forgot.
Yeah, that's how I felt when we watched, when the last season of Game of Thrones came out. Sean and I binged all of the series in a row, and we had seen them all too. But like, because we were watching them in real time when they all came out. I mean, first of all, there was years worth of them. So they were like years ago. And then we had to wait the big gaps between episodes, right? And so watching everything in a row was such a different experience than watching it in real time as they came out. And I feel like everything was new. I'd be like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Who the heck is that guy? It was the same exact thing where it was like literally like watching it for the first time.
I know.
Totally different experience. So I wanted to take these ghost stories, and it inspired me to do a ghost episode, but bring it all back and tie it into fairies, because I want to find what the connection is, because so many times we talk about fairies, there's like a lot of them, there's this super gray area between fairies and ghosts, and like which one is which one, and are they the same or are they different?
There's also a gray area between fairies and aliens. Would you not agree?
There are, and I want to dig into that as its own episode, because I haven't done any digging, but I know that I have heard that as well, and I don't know much about that. But yeah, we will definitely touch on that. So I feel like in my head, as you know, I've been chasing down as many like first person sources as I can. So like I started off with the modern books by like Morgan Dalmer.
We had a little convo on Facebook. I was fangirling all over that.
I know. So I
replied to something, and I was like, it's Morgan Taylor. Oh my God, I love your books.
I know, and she's super prolific. So that's where I started. And then I'm like, she keeps mentioning this Katherine Briggs woman. So of course, then I went to Katherine Briggs and I bought her books. And then in her books, she is mentioning these sources. So I'm now trying to collect her sources because it's like we're getting closer and closer to like the actual source. So Morgan,
you're such an academic. You can tell you've been to university. That's totally an academic thing to do.
I just love it. So we started in 2021, right? And then we went back to Katherine Briggs is publishing in like the 60s and 70s. Her first person sources are being published at the turn of the century, so about 1900. And one of the new ones that I bought this week, because I'm buying them all, this one by William Henderson, it was published in the 1860s. So his stories are now going back to like, great grandfather. So we're getting closer and closer to these real fairy accounts, and it's so exciting. And each time you get closer to the original source, the more details you get and the more subtleties and the more it's like, it's actually really exciting to get a hold of these things.
Yeah, because a lot of the more recent ones, certainly that I found online when I'm researching, if I look up something online and it'll just say, there's a story about this, it just summarizes it. It doesn't give you all the nitty gritty, gory.
Exactly. And so
do your research, folks.
I know.
Well, you don't need to because we're doing it for you. All you have to do is listen to us.
Yeah. I'm buying up every book ever written. Yeah. So, but it's really, really fun. So what I wanted to do was I find myself wanting to get a more concrete grasp of how people were perceiving these fairy spirit entities, like as the original source people. So not the like current sightings, which are very real, but they're very like fleeting and flashes. The experiences of the people living in like the 16th, 17th, and even early 18th centuries are very concrete. Like, I feel like they have like relationships with these spirits. They talk to one another. They're seen on a regular basis. Like, it's such a different experience. And so those are the stories that I've been kind of chasing down. Because for me, that's like, those are much more concrete than just like, oh, the bogies are a spirit that blah, blah, blah. That's just like a glossed over glossary definition. These are like firsthand accounts. These are families that have like talking relationships with these creatures. Like, it's totally different.
They're a lot more connected in that sense, in that it's like someone down the road in their village almost. It's like their neighbor
or like a family member who lives with them. It's and they have names.
I was listening to probably our favorite modern fairy sightings podcast that we always mention. It might have been that one, or it might have been the Encounters with the Good People, which is another cool podcast that I've been listening to. And they were saying that whoever it was that was talking about it, we're saying that obviously pre-industrial revolution, I'm putting my own analysis and my own spin on this. Pre-industrial revolution, people had a lot more connection to nature. Things weren't busy, fast roads, lots of cars, lots of machinery, all of those things. And so possibly the other world creatures were a lot more visible because they were in a lot more of our spaces, whereas all of the electricness of life is kind of, if you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm just explaining with my hand movement. It's like shoved them out, and so they're now in the more remote areas. So like if you go up like a really remote forest or a really remote mountain, because they're not going to come and sit in the middle of the tube in London or whatever. Whereas in the 1700s, even London wouldn't have been like super
crowded
everywhere. It might have been, but
no, and that's super consistent with like the modern sightings are all in really remote, quiet nature spots, and that's like very much characteristic of who's seeing them now. And of course it was just larger swaths of area at those centuries ago, so it does make perfect sense, but there still is like, it's just a shocking amount of, like, these spirits, quote unquote, have first and last names. They have children that have names. Like, it's, I really want to get to the bottom of like, what are they seeing? Like, I want to know so I can, like, I don't know, sleep better at night. I'm like trying to get to the bottom of this. So
do you not sleep at night because of this?
Because, well, this is what my research I always do in bed. Like, I have like a highlighter, a notebook, and like all my books like spread around with me on my bed.
So I thought maybe you were having like weird nightmares about fairy creatures.
Well, I do have to say, some of the more recent stories that I've been listening to, I had to kind of pull back because they really were starting to freak me out, especially the ghost ones. Like, there's been a kind of a run of like really nasty, negative, scary, murdery things, and I am so like,
God, wait till you hear next week's episode.
Oh no, don't do it.
I'm not saying what it is.
I get really,
that was a hint. I just wanted to
God.
freak you out because I love how freaked out you get.
It literally scares me. It like scares me. It gets in on my skin and I can't get
you're,
out.
You're gonna have nightmares after next.
God. So especially as I feel like I get closer and closer to the answers, it's like, wait, what? Stop. Like, you're getting too close. Like, this is freaky. But I'm hoping that like getting close actually sheds some light on it so I can understand. So I'm not so emotionally freaked out and I can intellectually like be like, okay, this was that or whatever. And I don't know if I'll ever get that clarity, but that is what I'm like secretly, that's like my why for bothering to take the time to do all this research and buy all these books. It's like I'm trying to dig out to find answers that make sense to me. And like, what are these people seeing? Like, and is it real? Like, I want to know. So what I did is I started with Katherine Briggs, an Encyclopedia of Fairies book, which is a hobgoblins, brownies, bogies, and other supernatural creatures. And she,
I need that book so bad.
You need this freaking book. And
although my son did buy me for my birthday,
another amazing
and
book.
with a little bit of prodding, I did send him the link. He wouldn't have guessed this. Another Katherine Briggs book, which is the Abbey Lubbers, Banshees, and Boggarts, the Who's Who of Fairies. Look how cool that one is.
I know. And I just bought that one 2 days ago. So I'll be getting that soon too. So she goes, and she's fabulous storyteller. She always lists her sources. And that's why I'm like been trying to buy up all her sources, because there's these certain people that she lists over and over and over and over again. So I've been trying to get the ones that she mentions the most are the ones books that I've been trying to collect. But she does just a fantastic job of telling the facts and recounting the events so that we can like categorize these supernatural creatures. And so what I did is I tried to find ones that were either clearly quote unquote real, like that had a physical form that you could describe in words, and then find other ones that were only categorized as being a spirit or a ghost, if you will, and then seeing if we could make sense of these things. So, I mean, there's like 8 million of books. I think I pulled out like a 6 or something. So it was a reasonable number to kind of discuss. Yeah. So there's, and these are in no particular order, I should say. There's something called the Dunters. Didn't we talk about the Dunters?
Yes, we did, because I just love the way that
I know. I remember being like, you bloody Dunter.
Do you know what's really strange? That is so super spooky, actually, because I was flicking through my new Katherine Briggs book the other day, and I haven't actually read it yet, but I was just flicking through it, and the word Dunters flashed up at me as well.
Oh,
So,
really? Yeah, and that's interesting. And she doesn't go on and on and on about some of these things too. They're just sort of little mentions. So they're a lot like red caps in that they inhabit that same borders. There's so much going on in the borders, I have to say. I mean, a lot of supernatural activity happens in the
I wonder
borders.
why.
Well, I think it's because that's literally the border. That's where so much conflict occurred for just thousands of years.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think there's just a lot of like history. Like, for example, so these are really categorized as spirits. So in other words, these are ghosts. These are not like categorized as fairies. I don't think they're literally called like border spirits, and they are haunting. They're haunting. So the red caps inhabit and haunt castles. And the Dunters are kind of like poor redcaps. They inhabit and haunt like old border keeps and like lesser buildings, not the castles.
Oh, that's not very fair, is it? The
I know,
redcaps get the castles and the Dunters get the crappy buildings.
Right. And so the kind of origin theory is that those foundations were all built by the Picts, and it was known that the Picts would have like sacrifices when things were being built, and they would sprinkle the blood of the animal or human sacrifice into the foundations of the buildings. So the theory is that the Dunters and the redcaps were spirits or ghosts of the original foundation sacrifices.
Oh my god, that is so creepy.
Disgusting. I know, right?
Oh, that made me shiver right up my spine. Oh, thanks for that. I'm gonna have a nightmare.
Super sorry. I love just that I'm not the only one that gets really creeped out by this stuff. And to go one step further, this is even creepier, is they do have like a physical manifestation, which is that these Dunters make a very constant sound. They make a grinding sound that's like kind of a humming that's going on constantly, kind of the sound of like grinding barley. So that real like I know. And when that sound gets louder and louder and louder, then that's they're basically foretelling like of a death is coming. So can you imagine like visiting one of these old keeps and hearing this buzz that you can't quite put your finger on, and then it's getting like louder and louder? Like, that's terrifying.
Oh, that is absolutely terrifying.
I know.
That has freaked me out so much.
Like, don't go to the borders. That's all I'm saying. I kind of want to steer clear of that.
Yeah, no, that's far too far south for me. I'll never get that far south because I don't like driving on motorways.
But what I find interesting is that when we did the episode on red caps, which I think was episode 2 of 3, it was really early. They had a very distinctive physical like description, right? It was like red caps, it was like iron boots, which was really creepy because fairies, but see, then maybe that makes sense because they're not fairies. Like, these are ghost spirits. And they're like, they always carry like a scythe, and they're old men, and the Dunters don't have, at least not from Catherine's books, a physical description written about them. Like, they don't seem to appear. They're like all spirit. So to me, I'm putting them strictly in the ghost box. Like, they go there in my head.
Are they then not something that you physically see as much?
Yeah, that's
more
what I'm
like
saying.
the sound.
They're there because correct, right?
Oh, that is so creepy.
I know. And when
I was just gonna say, I think we will have to do at some point also an episode or 2 on the Picts, because the Picts are, even though we don't know hardly anything about them, are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, they are. And they do tie in because they were there first and the longest. But yeah, none of the research on the Dunters talks about a physical description, which I thought was super interesting.
Ah.
So that was one. Another one that I researched is actually called a Dunny. And this is another spirit. Because he also haunts, it's also in the border regions again. Like there's so much like death and dark and haunting going on there.
Do you think that like you said, that's, you know, there's been a lot of conflict
and bloodshed
that's the reason why more strange happenings occur?
That's how the folklorists
it's almost like
it.
Something goes into the land and happens in the land around these areas because of like pain, or it's a bit like how you can have deep trauma come through in your DNA.
Yeah, it is.
I'm
like
sure I've said that
it's
before,
like
actually.
the horror is like imprinted on those physical locations.
Yeah.
And it's like the physical blood turns into something like darker and spiritual over time. That just felt fucked up. But it's but I feel like I know. I mean, I think the folklorists, that's how they kind of,
or like, it could also be the other way around, in that there are evil spirits or fairy creatures in that particular area, and because they're in that particular area, horrible things tend to happen in that area.
Ooh, I hadn't reversed it.
Like they could almost be influencing the behavior of the people that live there or whatever, so that bad things happen.
Oh, that's darker even still. That's creepy.
I feel like we're a horror movie channel.
I know. Well, don't worry. We'll end with real life ghost stories, and then that won't be scary at all.
Well, I know Ginger's one, and that one freaked me out.
I know, and so does Atolnies as well. So the Dunny is, they think he is actually a specific man who he basically like robbed a granary, and then he buried the treasure, and then he died before the location of the loot was disclosed. And this is a thing that comes up again too, which is like people who have hidden something and then died. I've seen this theme appear a few times, where then the spirits are connected to that particular place where their treasure was buried or whatever, and they become like tutelary spirits where they can't leave. And that
they're like guarding their treasure.
That kind of binds them to that specific physical location. But this guy is interesting. So this guy I would categorize again as a ghost rather than a fairy. But they do he also has the power to shapeshift. So he appears as a horse and as a donkey. And he plays a lot of tricks on people. He plays like evil tricks on people. So like, for example, he disguised himself. There was a farmer who lives on that land, and he disguised himself as the farmer's own horse, so that the farmer didn't recognize that his horse was actually this shape-shifted spirit. And his wife was pregnant, and so he gets on his horse to go grab the midwife. And then it says after the birth, they're coming back home, and the horse disappears in the middle and drops the farmer into like the stream on the way home. And the farmer's like, that wasn't my horse. Like, that wasn't my horse.
That's so weird.
It's like super dark. Yeah. So here's the story in and of itself. He says he would assume the form of the farmer's own horse, and one of his favorite times to play pranks was when the farmer rode to fetch a midwife. He would carry the farmer to fetch the midwife prosperously enough, but on the way back after the birth, he would slip from under them with a loud wicker, dropping them into the stream. So like, he'd be returning the midwife back home, and then he would just disappear, poof, and they would just clunk down in the stream. Yeah.
At least he didn't do it on the way, so that the midwife was foiled in helping the birth.
I know, at least the baby really like got delivered.
Nasty. I know.
And another trick he would do is he would pretend to be the plowman's steady old plow horse, allow himself to hold on, allow himself to be harnessed, let out, and hitched to the plow, and then suddenly disappear, leaving his harness fall into the grounds.
Oh, have they gone?
So then the last little fun tidbits is that this guy was also seen in semi-human form, and that he was used to be seen above one of the really high crags in the area, and he would be like, his legs, he would be like sitting on the top and is dangling his legs, like,
oh, that's creepy as well,
like hanging out. Yeah, super creepy, right? He's like basically just haunting this area and won't leave.
Oh no, oh no, thank you.
I don't know why it's extra creepy that he's sitting dangling his legs, but it really is, because he's kind of like
just super creepy.
He's sitting around waiting to like concoct his next like evil thing. So they also categorize him as a goblin.
It's like almost like I'm sitting like spying on you.
Yes.
Dangling my legs over.
I know.
Sorry, did you say they categorized him as a goblin?
So they were saying he is like yes. So she says, but if he is a ghost, he has all the shape-shifting powers and the practical joking tastes of a regular goblin. So that's because he can shapeshift. What was that sound, Maggie? That was so naughty. Sorry, I get cuted out and I can't not talk to my dog. So apparently, and I didn't realize this, that goblins, but see, then it's like shifts back to like a fairy word. Do you know? Like it's like she's so clearly like, if he is a ghost, which he is, and then they're like, but he's a goblin because he shapeshifts then.
But then he's a ghost because technically speaking, a ghost is the spirit of somebody who was a living human who died.
Right.
Is what this person is said to be. And there's only one of them.
Correct.
There's only one Denny. Is it Denny?
Dunny.
Dunny. There's only one. They're not like a species.
I know. So
it is a ghost. It's like one person that lived in that particular area that died and is haunting, doing naughty things.
Right. But
spying on people.
But because he shapeshifts, that's apparently not, then that like takes him half out of the ghost category and into the goblin category, because that's a characteristic of a goblin. But then is it because the red caps are also characterized as being a goblin and they don't shapeshift? They're just those evil fuckers that are super mean. Yeah. So that's why I'm so confused. And that's why I'm like not giving up this. Like I want to know the differentiation of these things.
Are you overthinking this? Are you overthinking?
I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. I just want more clarity. I want to see like from the original folklorists, like how are they clarifying these things?
Do you know what I've got an image in my head of? You now. I've got an image in your, it must be watching too many crime dramas. I've got an image in my head of like you putting this like wall of sticky notes.
Oh, with the strings, like tying them
with
from
like
one
lines
dot to
between,
the next. Like a beautiful mind.
Like one of those clear whiteboard things that you can like write on with a special pen.
I have them
and
right
like do
and
like a super detective.
Oh my God, I do. I want it. I want to know. I want to like, that's what I was saying when we started.
That's a way of figuring it out. That's how all good detectives figure it out.
I know. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put
you also need though like a Columbo like jacket or whatever
and like a pipe. Totally.
A cigar.
Absolutely. But this is what's so fascinating to me is like, how are we categorizing these things, and what makes something a spirit, what makes it a ghost, and what makes it a fairy? Like it helps because I want to like get a better grasp on the fairy realm. So who are the players? Like, what are we talking about? And what are their characteristics? So that was, again, I was feeling like really concrete, like, okay, this dude's a ghost for sure. And then they start talking about shapeshifting and goblins. And then I'm like, but then is he though? Like, where does that leave us? So then I left with that question unanswered. And then I went to go find another creature to go look at, because I was like,
pin on your board.
Exactly. So then this case, we're talking about, I was going to go to a Dobie next, but I'm going to actually hop over to a Brownie, because Brownies are super well-known and prolific. They are found everywhere, like all over Scotland, like every single north, south, highlands, islands, borders, everywhere, like every family seems to have a brownie. And this is also interesting. So they fall under the hobgoblin category. So you have the goblins are evil. When you add the hob part, it kind of like it takes the edge off the evil, and these tend to be like more practical and useful.
But they don't shapeshift, brownies.
They don't, and in fact they have like a very clear-cut physical form to them. And they're so prolific. It's not like that one, there's not one Dunny of Northumberland. It's like there's like a million brownies, and lots of families have brownies that live in their household, and they're like members of the family.
I was going to say, are they like a ghost of a previous family member?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
They're not.
I'm rubbish at the research.
No, they're not. But then there's like a but on the end of that.
Oh, okay.
And I'll get to that in a second when I talk about the Dobies. So brownies are, they are a very concrete physical form. They're 3 feet tall. They're usually hairy. They're almost always men, but not always. But they're like 98% of them are men. Or
some categories to produce the brownie
more.
race.
I know, and they do have. There's a brownie who's very famous, who has a first and last name, who has a son who's a Dobie. Like, it's fascinating. So. Yes.
Those brownie women have got a pick of a lot of brownie men then, if there aren't that many.
I know. So
poor brownie men, they're they've got to really have like the right kind of hair to get picked.
Well, maybe that's why they're always vanishing. They're like running off to plant another seed, and then they'll go find like a new family.
So the brownie women have like 10 at once.
Yeah. Yeah, they have litters because they're not human anyways, so they can do whatever they want. A little brownie litter, just see little teeny tiny funny things.
To be a brownie lady.
Yeah. They do though, but I'll talk about her in a second. So they do have, a lot of times they have some deformities as well. So a lot of them have like
is that all the inbreeding? Because there's only a few women?
Yeah, obviously.
That must all be related.
We finally cracked the code on the brownie deformities. Why did no one think of this before? It's so obvious. Karen and Lucy and their new breakthrough podcast episode. Finally discover the truth
behind
my
sticky notes and my Sharpie markers. Brownies,
right? I did make
string.
I did make a family tree of
did
the,
you?
Of the, yeah.
Oh my God, see, you started it already.
Yes, I told you this is serious business. We have the Hobgoblins, and then Brownies, and then Dobies, and then Boggarts, and what happens to them all. So the Brownies they're literally everywhere, like I said. These are sometimes invisible, but they're very often visible as well. They're very much attached to families or places. Like it's hard to rid yourself of one, although there are easy ways to do it. Okay, that just totally contradicted myself. They are
brownies help out with the housework, don't they?
They do. They're little.
Why would you want to get rid of that?
Well, people don't do it on purpose. Sometimes they accidentally offend them, and then they vanish. But they are, they seem to be, they're described by this early folklorist who was published in the 1860s by calling them a shaggy aboriginal, which I love because it's kind of like they were here first, right? Shaggy, like I just have this picture of this brownie thing who was attached to a family and his service and attracted by food and kindness, but distrustful of any items that can bind them. So a lot of times people make the mistakes because they're naked a lot of the time. So the family
more and more, less and less appealing as the description goes on. A naked, hairy, shaggy thing.
So quite frequently, a family trying to encourage a little modesty will say, leave out some clothes for their brownie helper. And then that is really offensive to the brownie. And then they will just they'll vanish. But that's sort of like that clothes of the brownie. yeah, represents like a permanence, and they're like, no, you're like cripping my style, and then they vanish. So they're like, you have to be super
They're
careful.
nudists.
They are nudists, hairy
Brownie, they're going to go
aboriginals,
on holiday on their brownie nature colony.
right? And go procreate and while they recreate.
One
There's
woman and
only
20
one
men.
woman. Well, and you know, they call the female brownies are called silkies because they wear rustling silk, like little gowns on their 3-foot hairy bodies, apparently. And that's where that name comes from.
Not Selkies though. Silkies, not Selkies.
Silkies, yes.
Because
Like
we like to make it complicated here in Scotland.
Yes, it's very specific details that we're talking about. So Brownie, so they're, and the most famous Silkie, and her name is Med Mulach. It's probably Mulach, whatever, with your guttural, amazing Scottish accent.
Oh, is it CH at the end?
Yes. Mulach, which actually is Gaelic, which means Hairy Meg. That was her nickname. That was her name. Yep. So she was apparently, yeah, so she's has like a whole famous story around her, and she but she would also, she was a bit like a banshee, because banshees are also tutelary spirits, and that they are attached to families, and banshees are the spirits of a past ancestor. Like those are ghosts.
So that's a ghost as well,
right? Yeah. But silkies are not. But they're similar to banshees because they're attached to the family, but they don't represent a past ancestor. They truly are like a fairy in their own category. And she had a son, and her son was a Dobie. And now Dobies are kind of hilarious because they're like stupid. They're like stupid brownies. They're like brownie juniors, where they're like not intelligent. They're not as helpful. They're like dumb brownies. So
I was getting so confused because I would pronounce that word Dobby like in Dobby the House Elf.
Yeah, well, it could be Dobby, but it's Dobies.
Oh yeah, that is a bit different.
Dobby would be Dobbie, and I think there is a Dobby as well. There is. There's like a million, and it's really confusing because I'm really good friends with a girl named Jen Dobby, and so every time I say her name, I think of fairies, but I don't tell her that because she'll think I'm freaking crazy.
Well, she's not even the clever one.
She's not so much the clever one. I'm just looking really quickly in Catherine's book about that.
She needs to change her name to Jen Brownie, and then she'll be the clever.
Yeah, there is a Dobby, and there's also Dobbs. So a Dobby is a friendly name for a hobgoblin in Yorkshire and in Lancashire. He is very like a brownie, but perhaps more likely to play mischievous pranks. In fact,
he's so confusing.
There's a million of these characters running around, but a Dobie is super specific, and that is one type of brownie. But
stupid one.
But it's not good. And even in parts of Scotland, they'll talk about like, oh, but she's such a Dobie. Are you stupid Dobie? Like it's an insult if you're throwing that insult around.
Oh God, I've never heard that.
Yeah,
maybe it's a Borders thing.
It probably is
thing.
But it's in this book. So she keeps referencing this book that I just bought by William Henderson. This folklore of the Northern Countries is like Northern England, Southern Scotland. So there's a lot going on in that area. So, and they're also supposed to be really gullible. So they're like it was common in these conflict areas to have a brownie in charge of keeping that, like, so if there was like a conflict or they knew a raid was coming or whatever, it was really common to like bury your valuables somewhere on your property. So if your house was raided, they couldn't come in and collect all your silver or whatever the hell they have. And so they would bury it, and they would go be like, take the brownie and be like, okay, watch our shit while we're off fighting. And if they couldn't get a brownie, then they'd be like, fine, you just get a Dobie to do it. Like, it was like always like the second, the last
he might
choice.
Forget where it got buried.
I know. It's just so funny
I feel
today.
a bit sorry for the Dobie then. Like,
Yeah.
I feel a bit sorry for them.
They
like,
said
they're kind of getting a bum deal.
I know. It says if no brownie was to be had, people used to fall back on a Dobie, which was always willing but very gullible. And like they're just treated like secondhand citizens. Like so sad. But however, they said also, so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that goes very firmly in the fairy category, right? They're like a physical entity. They have like this relationship with humans until wait, because it's never clear. It's never concrete.
Of course it isn't. Of course
it's not, because there was one woman, Lady Wild, who was in or whatever a region. It says Lady Wild describes the Irish banshee as the spirit of some beautiful girls of the family, dead long ago, but still concerned with the fortunes and the family. We just talked about that. It says, and something the same way, the Dobie of Morthyn Tower in Rokeby is said to be the ghost of a long past wife of the Lord of Rokeby, who was murdered by her jealous husband in the glen below. It is said that the blood which dripped from his dagger left indelible stains on the stairs. This Dobie was more of a ghost than a hobgoblin, for it seemed to haunt the house in a ghostly way, and neither keened nor undertook domestic duties. In the end, it was laid off, not by a gift of clothes, which we talked about is a great way to insult the brownies and then they disappear, but by exorcism. Because that's not creepy at all. So
But then that just sounds like a ghost. That doesn't sound like a Dobie. It's like they kind of said, oh, maybe she was just a hairy ghost.
I know. And then it just
maybe she was a hairy woman, and because she was small and hairy, when she was a ghost, she looked like a Dobie, and so they said that she was a Dobie. And I keep saying that and imagining a Dobie like a Dobie Acrobat or a Dobie PDF reader.
Well, and this is the subtlety that I was talking about, which is why it inspires me to go hunt down these first person sources, because then you have this one little sentence in the middle of the Dobie section, which just says, there was, however, another use of the name as a tutelary family ghost. So she's basically saying Dobie could be one of two things. It could be a brownie or it could be an actual ghost, right? That's just like the word itself is just used differently depending on like where you are or which family you're talking to. And I do also have to say that some of these names come up, and the stories that they originate from are like from one person, like we just talked about, like the Dunnies. Like that was like one dude, but maybe because the stories were so prolific, they had such a big number of stories about the same thing, they were able to, like, they kept coming up over and over, which then that story got picked up by one of these, original folklorist researchers, and then it got written down into these books, and that's why we're reading of them. But really it's like one entity that now has a whole
we almost
name.
need to find, if we were going to be super obsessive, which I know that you are about this, because you've got your,
I like my books.
You've got your sticky notes and your
family tree,
markers,
my family tree. Yes,
there was some original folklorist traveling through the borders.
Oh, for sure.
Spoke to the guy
who
experienced the Dunny.
Yes. Well, this is like,
and then it's got handed down till it's in Katherine Briggs books or whatever, and we're not reading where it's actually come from.
And that's why I'm trying to go to the sources for her stories. I'm like, okay, let's get to the bottom of that one thing. So for like in Walter Evans Wens's book, The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, which we already did which now you have to, and which we did a whole episode on, is that he went to all the Celtic countries and he said, hey, who's your top folklorist? And he grabbed that person and had that guy for each of those countries tour him around and be the one to go with him, because he knew and recognized that like those guys were like the number one guys. So that's why those sources are to be trusted and are like good reflections, because he went like right to the best guy who's already collecting the stories.
But there's also a difference somewhere God, we're being so
I know, highbrow
clever and academic this episode.
Very professional.
So there's a difference somewhere between the one isolated story and then the other ones like Brownies, where every single village or family has them.
Yes.
And they've all got the same name.
Mm-hmm.
They're all Brownies. They're all similar in appearance. And it's more than one. So has a folklorist gone round from one village to another and then being like, yeah, we've got this thing called a brownie in our house. And then the next village, somebody else says the same thing and is like, oh, well, this is something that happens all over. And isn't that fascinating? That's fascinating to me, that there's more than one and they've got the same kind of description and they do the same kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, that's
and then also we might get people, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, I'm all in it. Yeah.
Like what you said right at the beginning about how back then they had names, they had special relationships, they actually interact. Like these people are speaking about when I have to bury my silver, I'm going to get my house brownie, who's called
Meg Muloch and
Hairy Meg, to look after it. But if she's not available, I'm going to get the stupid ass Dobie
I'll get her son to do it.
So they're actually, it's like having a servant in their house.
Yes, I know.
Whereas nowadays, most people that experience spirits or whatever in their house, it's like, apart from Ginger and Lee,
right?
It's like that. If you haven't listened, Ginger's one of our OGs, and she came on for an episode, and she's got
a family ghost.
Yeah, that house family ghost called Lee that they interact with. But most people, it's just like, oh, this weird thing happened. Right. They don't know. It's not like an actual thing with a name that they.
It's like we all are Gingers and we all have our ghosts.
Well, I am Ginger.
Yes, you are.
But I thought you were having a go at my red hair there.
Oh, I love you when you're red.
We're all Gingers. Yeah, no.
but I think that's and that's what I can't get over too. And you want to hear what I think is the funniest part about?
Of course I do. I like the funny
brownies.
Parts.
So not only do they see them, not only do they talk to them, not only do they have names and children, they've written down a lot of these conversations. And this is the kicker to me. The brownies, they all talk in rhymes.
Oh, do they? Go on, give me an example. That's amazing.
Like it just gets better and better, like tons of conversations. And it's really hard for me to read because I have a dumb American accent and it's super cute if you don't. Let me
try it in a Scottish. You should have got.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause so I can go look up one. Hold on. Okay, are you ready for some brownie quotes?
I am more than ready. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay. This is about a Shetland brownie, king of the troughs, who was presumably naked since he was laid. When they say he was laid by a gift of clothing, it means like he left because they tried to give him a gift of clothing. One naked little hobgoblin, however, was not Shaggy, if we must trust his own pathetic description of himself. This is the hobgoblin brownie talking about himself. Little pixie fair and slim, not a rag to cover him. Like, what? Somebody wrote that down. Like, this is what my brownie said today. Like,
oh my God, that's amazing.
Like, they talking rhymes. And it says, it's no wonder that the lament called forth the gift of clothing that laid him, but he did not go weeping away like this other brownie called the Groggetch of Man, but ran away merrily, as Mrs. Bray tells us, chanting, "Pixie fine, Pisty gay, Pixie now will run away." We never saw him again.
You know what image I've got in my head? I've got this image of this really small, hairy man, naked, with like spindly legs, like dancing out like that, like a little
like naked, like nee. I know, right, Maggie? So here's another one. So this is from a story of a Lincolnshire brownie who most unusually was annually given a linen shirt until a miserly farmer succeeded to the farm, left him one out that was, of course, sacking, on which the brownie sang, "Harden, harden, harden, hamp. I will neither grind nor stamp. Had you given me a linen gear, I had served you many a year. Thrift may go, bad luck may stay. I shall travel far away." And then he left. So, there's a lot going on. These
So
are
they like to talk in rhyme. It's a bit like, is Rumpelstiltskin not a brownie or a hobgoblin?
I don't know, but let's look into that.
Because didn't he talk in rhyme?
I don't know, but let's search it. Let's look it up.
Let's add that to our
yep. And then there's another one. There's a traditional
investigation board.
There's also a traditional brownie song that says, "What have we here? Hempen, hempen. Here I never more tread nor stampin'." And that's what they would say when they were mad and leaving because of this gift of clothes. There's more. There's like more and more and more. So this is what I'm talking about. These fairies are physical entities. They have relationships, talking, physical, helping. They're doing work for families. They're working in the house. They're working in the fields. They're protecting the family's things. Like, these are like.
So where did they go to then?
They went off to procreate with the one woman one is where they're going, Lucy. We've already solved that question 20 minutes ago on our very own podcast.
Did we all start dressing them so they buggered off?
Well, I think they dressed them because they were sick of looking at their little hairy, nasty like bodies. Is why. I mean,
we're gonna say something else there, and I was like, "This might not be a PG podcast."
Trying not to list
a bit too far.
I'm trying not to list body parts, but like, but I just feel like it's hilarious. They like. The recounts of the rhymes. I just feel like these are real things.
Yeah, they are
real. Okay, so we talked about that. Then but then like we've just now encountered.
They don't sound like ghosts to me.
No,
they sound like fairies.
But and there's always a but.
There's always a but.
Always a but. Here's where it gets complicated, as always, which is why it's not solved, is that there are also many descriptions of these same house brownies who we already know are under the hobgoblin category, thanks to my fairy family tree. And sometimes, and there's a lot of cases of these that have been recorded by folklorists throughout history, that the brownies like they turn from being helpful to being mischievous and troublesome. And sometimes they get really, they basically become assholes is what happens. They play a lot of tricks. They'll start snatching food. They'll start like messing with the children of the house and like not in kind, good ways. They'll stop working and they actually morph. They start out nice and they end up mean. And then they actually refer to them as being Boggarts. But so many of these encounters are like, unfortunately, their brownie then became a Boggart. And I'm like, well, what the hell is a Boggart? A Boggart is
a nasty brownie.
They are nasty brownies, but they are categorized as like poltergeist. They like really are real assholes, and they drive families from their homes. Like they are so
a Boggart's
bad.
Like a poltergeist, basically. It throws things around and moves things
and like terrorizes the families of the house.
Oh my goodness! Oh,
it's
no,
like
that's horrible.
That,
that's so
and
creepy.
There's very many accounts of families who like run from their homes, driven out by these Boggarts, but they're categorized as being like totally invisible, playing really bad tricks, trashing the house, really haunting the shit out of these families so that they're like driven from their homes. Then that to me sounds like ghost all day long.
Yeah. Do you know, I just had a wee like cha-ching, like light bulb thing go off my
cha-ching, like a cash register light bulb.
That's the wrong sound effect. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like a
yes.
ping,
I do.
ping.
Yes.
That's the sound effect I needed. Because I actually wonder if we were to go back in time to 1400s or 1500s,
Mm-hmm.
how many ghost, not speaking about fairy encounter, like, but ghost stories, because you don't really hear about ghost stories. Ghost stories seem to be a thing
like a
of
modern day thing, right?
19th century onwards.
Yeah, true. I hadn't thought about that.
And actually, all our ghosts that we see, all of us seeing lots of ghosts, seem to be people or beings from like the 1800s or the 1900s. You don't see Neanderthal ghosts, or you don't see like Pictish ghosts or ghosts from the 500s. You don't you see, like, you know, it's like here's the ghost of Anne Boleyn, or here's the ghost of, you know, it's people from like the 1500s onwards, see. Right. But you also don't see ghosts necessarily of, and I'm speaking like we're all just seeing ghosts on a day-to-day basis. You don't see ghosts of like someone from 1975.
That's not true.
Like, you don't see like a hippie ghost.
That's not true, because remember Lee, when Ginger saw Lee, he had like 60s garb on, and the boy that she found in their house, which is super disturbing, was dressed in like 30s clothing.
Okay, so maybe there are. But
I'm following you. I got you.
My point is that it's almost like the beings or the other world beings that exist in whatever plane parallel to us, that were categorized as fairies, brownies, Boggarts, Dunnies, Dobies, all those things back then have become ghosts in our we've categorized them as ghosts, or ghosts and aliens. Yeah. You know,
well,
like
spirits. Yeah.
Spirits.
Yeah.
So like different kinds of things. I just wonder, do you see where I'm going with this? I'm not explaining myself very well, but I just wonder whether they are actually the same thing, but they're just called different things because of the way that us as a society in this moment in time are rationalizing it in our heads.
Well, I mean,
so they were maybe called angels at one point.
But I'm going to say yes to some of it, but not all of it, because we're not seeing hairy 3-foot creatures in our homes.
I know. That is the problem.
Yeah. So yes to like the guy who is shape-shifting and messing with the horses and dangling his feet. Like, that's what I was kind of saying with all of these.
We
like,
don't want to think about any more dangly bits on this episode.
No dangly bits.
Very much.
But like, that's what I was saying, is like some of these to me, when I'm reading them, just sound ghost for sure. So yes to those. But some of these, and that was my whole point, is like, these are definitely not ghosts.
No,
these
I know.
are like,
I can understand how, like a green lady could be categorized as a ghost or a fairy spirit.
Right. Agreed.
But not a 3-foot hairy creature.
No. Who you're like having conversations and recording their rhymes as they leave.
But maybe because the world is such a magical place, maybe in the 1600s they were visible and they actually had a conversation.
I feel like they did.
And then now in modern times, they're like, sod that, I'm not dealing with those freaking idiots that like, they don't even need me now, they've got a Hoover. So although we do, Brownies, we do, I do need my house needs you.
If there's any Brownies listening, please come. Come.
But maybe they're like they've made themselves invisible, so they're still here, they're still in
They're just hanging out in their
but we
different
can't see
plane.
them, and that's
Yeah.
where poltergeist activity comes from.
Mm.
So it's like this thing moves across the table,
It's really just
and there's a wee Boggart who's like done it. But in the 1500s, the person would have seen the Boggart do it, but now we don't. So it's like poltergeists. Let's get
okay. Now, yeah, I'm following you. That could definitely be. I'm in.
We are fairy detectives.
Yeah, we have just discovered
We're the mind hunter of the fairy world.
You're welcome. We're officially expert folklorists. We know. I'm gonna add it to my email signatures. Be like,
who like
artists?
To speak out of our asses most of the time. And actually have
talking complete crap at all times.
Yeah. Honestly, don't take our word for it. We don't really know what we're talking about.
So before I read the actual ghost story, so I thank you to our listeners who are actually taking the time out of their busy lives to write us these amazing stories.
Oh, I know.
Before I read those out, because that's what inspired me to do this episode, was like, I want to research these like then ghosts, and how do we differentiate them from fairies, and can we? There is one more I want to talk about because it's actually funny. It has a bit of a twist ending too.
Oh, I love a funny twist.
Yes. So there is another. See, now this one they talk about it goes by, there's two basically like verbal variations. It can be known as a buckin or a bogan. Which is also another hobgoblin spirit. There's like a slew of these spirits, but see, they also call them a spirit, often tricksy, sometimes dangerous, and sometimes helpful. So again, this to me sounds more like a ghost, right?
Yeah, and I don't like that whole like sometimes helpful and sometimes dangerous.
I don't either. Yeah,
you just don't know where you stand with them.
No, I really don't. So I'm going to read you this about this one, if that's okay, to kind of wrap up. This will be the last thing I wrap up here, and then I'm going to read the ghost stories from our listeners. So, and this was documented by J.F. Campbell, and this is another guy's whose books I've been trying to track down. Obviously. Since I'm actually not a Campbell by marriage, damn it. But this, I'm trying to get this book because he was the big Scottish folklorist. There's two Campbells that were, but he gives a story of one of these bogans who followed his master. Actually, I'm not going to tell you where he followed his master because that's a twist at the end. So you'll have to wait and see where he followed him to. So
as long as it's not my house, then that's okay.
He went to Lucy's house. Callum Moore McIntosh had a little farm in Lochaber. Don't know where that is. A Bakken haunted the place, and there was a kind of love-hate relationship between the two. They often fought, but the Bakken helped Callum at need. One day, for instance, as Callum came back from the market, the Bakken waylaid him and they had a fight. When they had parted and Callum got home, he found he had lost his best handkerchief, which he pried because it had been blessed by a priest. He was sure...
Sorry, can we just stop right there for a second? You get your handkerchief blessed by a chief?
As you do.
As you do. And it is a best one because it's best at holding bogies or
right. So when he goes home, he's all excited to show his priest blessed handkerchief.
And then he opens it and he's like, look at what I made inside my handkerchief.
To his family ghost, as he's all excited to share him about his priest.
Okay. Says handkerchiefs are disgusting anyway, because like imagine carrying bogies around in your pocket.
Yeah. Blech. Different kind of bogey.
A different kind of bogey. Yeah. You don't call them bogies in America?
We call them boogers.
Oh yeah. We call them bogies.
Oh, that's so funny. He was sure the Bakken had it, and he went back to look for it. Sure enough, he found the Bakken rubbing the handkerchief on a rough stone. See, this is a very physical entity. He came back, he saw this thing holding his handkerchief. Like in my head, I see like a physical, this is a physical thing.
Yeah.
And they're having a conversation, which went like this. It's well you've come, Callum, said the Bakken. I have been at your death. Oh, I'd have been your death if I rubbed a hole in this. As it is, you'll have to fight me for it. So they fought, and Callum won back his handkerchief. A little later, however, when they had run out of firewood and the snow prevented Callum from fetching a birch he had felled, he heard a great thud at his house door, and there was the tree lugged through the snow by the Bakken. When he had to move house, the Bakken brought a great cart that he had left behind and saved him a 10-mile tramp across difficult country. So now they've fought. This Bakken spirit has helped him huge in 2 times of need, right? Some years later came the deportations, and Callum was one of the first to go to New York. He had to stay some time in quarantine, and when he got to his new plot of land, the first person to meet him was the Bakken, but in the form of you ready for this? A goat. And the goat said, "Ha ha, Callum, I am before you." The Bakken was very helpful in clearing Callum's new land. He thus became an example of the American fairy immigrant, which there is a whole section on American fairy immigrants. I told you there was a
Ellis Island for fairies. They've got like a fairy Ellis Island section.
They come along on the boats.
Scots here, fairies here. Scots go right, fairies go left. You stay in your pen, 2-week quarantine. That's not that long. Some people go through it for longer. And, you know, that is so weird.
I know. So again, you have like this concrete physical entity that these people
but I think that guy was not right in the head thinking that his Bakken was a goat.
And also, who is collecting that story? Like who is that? Who collected that story to write it that got in this book? Do you know what I'm saying? Because they would have had
in America.
They had to have been in America. So anyways, that's the end, because that's just wackadoodle. So I had to include that.
That's hilarious.
Right? So it doesn't really conclude anything other than there's some strange shit going down when it comes to these hobgoblins.
Yes. Also a super silly story. Like, I'm cleaning your snotty hanky.
Yep.
And I'm fair pissed off about it.
Yep.
But then I'm gonna do all this nice stuff to like get your
like he brought him a whole tree. So he must have been super naturally strong. So, because Callum felled an entire birch tree and then this brownie thing just carries it to the guy's house. This is like, and then they have a conversation and he's a goat. Like, there's so many things happening here.
There's so much happening in that story.
I know. All right, I'm gonna read the listener story. Do you have Gingers? Do you want to read her?
I can get Gingers out. I can.
Do you want to read one? Because I can still read the other one as well.
Yeah, I'll read Gingers.
We'll take turns, and your accent is better than mine. Someone on one of my Facebook posts said that I sounded like Kermit the Frog, and she wanted to know where I was from. And I didn't know if that was an insult or a compliment.
You sound like Kermit the Frog.
I know.
No, you don't.
I didn't know what to make of that. I was like, thanks. All right, here, I'm going to pause while you look for that. Or no, do you want me to read one while you look?
You can read.
Wait, hold on. Yes. I'll pause it. Boom.
Will I read Ginger's out first?
Yes. Yes. And I'm looking at it as well. So good.
Here goes. Ginger, we love you. Thank you for sending us this email.
Thank you.
It's so cool.
It is.
Hey, ladies, I'm loving the podcast and adored Nikki's guest appearance. Yeah, we did too.
Yay.
Hi, Nikki. We love you too.
Yeah, we do.
So I returned to work last week, and the spirits that inhabit the university student union have been welcoming me back. Although they seem small and non-eventful for the most part, I know they are there. For example, as I'm walking through the building, I'm occasionally feeling someone behind me, but when I turn around, no one is there. Oh, that's the spookiest feeling in the world.
Ugh.
I've seen movement in my office, mostly around the doorways, but again, when I look closer, no one is there. And I've turned corners thinking I've run into a person only to find myself alone in the corridor. Karen knows what a corridor is. He. Ginger wrote that.
Wait, what's a corridor?
I'm not telling you again.
But I don't know.
Yesterday, I told my student that I was heading upstairs for a meeting, turned to the elevator. What's an elevator? Which is only a few feet from my office, When the elevator door opened, as if someone had pushed the call button, no one was inside the elevator. I was sure to tell them thanks for the assistance, as my hands were full at the time.
Of course she did. She loves some ghost friends.
Oh,
She's probably so sweet.
nice.
She just walks around all day with a little smile, like, thanks, ghosty. As everyone else is like, holy shit, I'm going to die. She's all, hi, thanks.
My students often ask me if the building is haunted, especially the ones who close the building at night. They see and hear things all the time. Yeah, no. But that's not all of it. You ready? This is a proper spooky one.
I'm ready.
The most exciting thing that happened, though, didn't happen to me, but to one of my co-workers. He came to tell me about it first thing yesterday morning because he knew I'd believe him and understand. So he is in the process of selling his late father's house. His father passed away 5 years ago, and I knew him well before I started working at the university. My friend had been working on the house for the last 5 years and decided recently to sell it. Last Saturday was his last day to get the house prepared before closing, and he hired someone to give it a good cleaning before the closing. While the cleaning lady was doing her thing, he left to run to the store for a bit. When he came back, the cleaning lady asked if he was expecting visitors. When he said no, she said that an older gentleman was standing outside in the driveway, so she went out and asked him if he needed help. He just asked her if she was cleaning the house. She said yes, and the gentleman thanked her. As she turned to go back into the house, she noticed that he was no longer there, nor was he walking down the street. She thought it was odd because there was also no vehicle. As she described the gentleman to my friend, which prompted him to show her a photo of his dad and asked if he was who she saw. She started crying and said, yes, that's the man I saw. Now, she had never met my friend or his father before, and she had no reason to trick him. She said she truly saw and spoke to his dad. She also told him that she had seen and spoken to other spirits before, but she doesn't tell people, especially strangers, because they would think she was crazy. He took it as a sign from his dad that he was okay with him selling the house and that all was well. Oh my God.
It's like amazing and disturbing all at once.
I know. A little backstory. So his dad was a patient at a clinic that I worked at before working at the university. He was such a sweet guy and loved to talk to me on his doctor visits. I learned that he was a retired English professor who specialized in folklore, and we would often talk about fairies and mythical creatures after he would recite a Shakespeare sonnet to me. He sounds so nice.
So sweet.
He always had a story to tell. He once told me the origin of knocking on wood for good luck. If you don't know, it's pretty fascinating. So back in the time of the Druids, it was believed that there were fairies and or sprites. What do you mean believed? Of course there were. That inhabited the trees. The Druids would walk through the woods, saying their wishes, prayers to the trees, and gently knocking on them to wake the fairy sprites so they could hear and grant them their wishes or prayers. They would ask for protection and blessings from the tree spirits as they tapped the trees to awaken them. As you can imagine, I adored my friend's father, and I'm so glad he made an appearance that put my friend at peace with his decision to sell his house. I hope you're both having a fantastic week. We are, Ginger.
Oh my God, Ginger. Seriously, it's so well written. I know. Not even funny.
I know. So this dad turned up to like bless the fact that the house was going away and just making sure that that woman cleaned it properly, which was
I wonder if he didn't show himself to his friend, like maybe that would freak him out, so he like waited.
He chose to show himself to someone else that actually had no idea who he was, so she wouldn't even see him as being a spirit to begin with.
I find that fascinating.
I know.
Wish I could ask ghosts how they control that.
And now all I've got is, sorry to make fun of, I'm not making fun of your wonderful email, Ginger. I'm just where my brain goes. But now I've got this image of people walking through a forest, knocking on the wood, going, thoughts and prayers.
I know.
Like you get people posting on Facebook, like send thoughts and prayers. Please send thoughts and prayers.
I know.
Thoughts and prayers. I'm gonna have to try that next time I'm in the forest.
I know. It's just such a sweet visual.
I know.
Like, hello, are you listening? Hello, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. As you walk through in their robes. Yeah, that was amazing. She's such a good storyteller. This next this next entry is by Altani, which I just love, and let me know where that, or what the origination of that name is, because I've never heard it before. Gorgeous name. It's really pretty. Okay. Hi there, lovely. Oh, hold on. Okay. Hi there, lovelies. Newer listener here. I just finished the episode on changelings. Love the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're like our 6th listener. We're very happy that you're here. I have a couple of spooky stories to tell. September of 2020, I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I did a walking ghost tour. Okay. Just had my first visit there, and OMG.
I want to go there so bad.
Yeah, you do. We were outside of the Kehoe house, I believe. I could be wrong, listening to the story about a child who died in the house. They say no children are allowed to stay there, but people report hearing children, among other things. Anyways, as we were walking past the house, I got a sudden chill. All of a sudden, something grabbed me. I booked it away from the house. When I was reviewing my photos later, you can see what appears to be a child in fox mask standing on the balcony. I took this photo just before I walked past it. I got a few other spooky photos throughout the night, but that was my spooky experience. Okay.
I need to see that photo.
I just have to fast. I'm actually going to share my screen because it's actually terrifying. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this screen. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this. Oh my God. It's actually terrifying. It looks like it's so creepy.
Will we be able to put this photo on Instagram? We could ask her.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen.
Yeah, you're sharing a picture of a wavy rainbow at the moment.
Can you see this? Can you see that?
Oh, I can see like a weird face.
Yeah, see this face right here?
Oh, that's weird.
It looks like a gargoyle.
Yeah, it looks like it's like peering out of a window.
I know. And then there's an overall shot as well. And I don't have it on my computer. That's weird. How messed up is that? So the other shot is from far. See how it's like she's looking up at the balcony? Mm-hmm. And it's right there. That's terrifying. You can clearly see the eyes, nose, head.
I know. Oh, I don't like that at all.
Right? I don't like it either. So
a couple of scaredy pants we are. And I'm not even as much of a scaredy pants as you.
I know. I'm like, what the fuck? I can literally see that. And it's like neck is craned towards you, like staring at you. I know.
It's like leaning.
Okay, I have to take it down because it's creeping me out. Okay. I have to take it off. Even though I was saving it to my computer, I'm like, I don't even want to be saving this to my computer. I'll put it on the blog. Like your
screensaver.
Oh, I'm not kidding, as my screensaver. And then she has a follow-up to this. Hold on, I'm not done.
Okay.
The second story is from when I was in Galveston, Texas in April of this year. We again decided to do a walking tour. We stopped at a church that the guide told us had a kid that hangs around one corner of the sidewalk. He told us that 12 people had reported being tugged at. Well, wouldn't you know it? I was lucky 13. I was standing on this corner and felt what felt like fingers running up my back. At first, I thought it was the wind, and then it happened again, this time harder, almost like a ha ha ha. Not really sure what that means, but I can just imagine that feeling the fingers running up your back?
Oh, it's giving me.
Hell no.
It's giving me all the creeps.
Yeah, hell no. Anyways, please keep up the great work. I also recommend reading Poison by Chris Wooding. It's a fictional take on changelings and the world of the Fae.
Ooh.
Yes. So thank you for that. Writing down.
We'll have to write that down and check that because, you know, we need to buy more books.
Yes. And then she had a follow-up email because, of course, I emailed her back and was like, we're going to need to see those photos. Although now I regret saying that because that one is so freaking freaky. So she wrote back and said, I've attached the photo of the Kehoe house as well as a zoomed in version with a specter circle. There's a name for it. I've also included another photo from that night. I've had an iPhone, so I don't know if it'll work via email. We were at the house that belonged to the founder of the Girl Scouts. Nothing creepy, but when I reviewed the live photo later, there's a shadow moving across the bottom of the photo. There was absolutely no one behind me, and the lighting should not have caused a shadow. So she did submit those as well, and I will put them on the blog. Also, I will add on the incident in Savannah. I do not spook easy. My dad, and this is the coolest part to me, or the creepiest, depending on what way you go. My dad is a mortician. And I grew up.
That is spooky.
You just like jumped in your seat. And I grew up around a funeral home.
Oh no.
I know. Like, okay, this is a twist. Death and the afterlife are normal to me. I've grown up in houses that I'm pretty sure were haunted and been to several haunted places over the years. I'm actually getting ready to do a tour in Springfield, Missouri, where I'm from. But this terrified me. When I got the chill, I almost felt like something was wrong. After it grabbed me, I had a solid chill for a good hour, and it wasn't cold that night at all. When I reviewed my photos and saw this, I cannot explain the terror that ran through me. That's terrifying. The incident in Galveston, I don't have any pictures of the church, but whatever touched me there came across as playful, and I was laughing when it happened. I do have one more.
I just got touched by a ghost.
I know. Hell no. That's what I say to that. I do have one more story to share. Feel free to use it or not. I lived near the area of Tyler, Texas for a few years. Tyler is very haunted, and my mom and I decided to do a tour near Halloween. We stopped at this restaurant that was being remodeled. It just so happened that they were doing an active investigation that night and let us join in. So the basement was the area that was the most haunted. We walked all over it and everything seemed normal. We went back upstairs to where there were cameras monitoring the building. The team saw something moving and decided to go back down. I was invited along and my mom stayed to watch the cameras. We got down the basement and I felt like something was touching the back of my neck and shoulders. I brushed it off, not thinking about it. The temperature in the basement had dropped for sure. Anyways, something kept brushing me. I kept shaking it off and not thinking about it too much. We got back upstairs and my mom and the person who was watching the cameras with her, their faces were white. They had been watching two small orbs follow me around. Anytime I felt something, they saw the orbs get close, and when I brushed it away, they'd back off. But they followed me the entire time I was in the basement.
Oh, that is super spooky.
Thanks again for all the work you and Lucy are doing.
Thanks for spooking us out.
Scaring the shit
Thanks
out of
for giving me scary dreams tonight. Thanks for making me think that there's something behind me all the time.
Maybe you'll think of like a hairy little hobgoblin man.
Oh God, no, that's worse. Can you imagine waking up at 3 a.m. in your room and there being a naked, dangly bits, hairy 3-foot man prancing about with skinny little legs?
No, saying a
rhyme.
No, yeah, rhyming cutesily.
I can't imagine anything worse than that.
Oh God,
like Savannah, that's worse than a full-on ghost. That's worse than a Savannah ghost.
Yes. Lucy, you have to come to Savannah on your next stop in the States.
I know. And isn't Galveston another super haunted place?
I didn't realize that, but I'm sure it could be. I'm sure.
I think it
there are
is.
little pockets of haunties in the States. Like Maine is a super haunted state. There's places in California. I know there's like little Louisiana is super haunted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like boring other places, but those were amazing. You guys, thank you so much for submitting your stories.
Thank you, Karen. That was absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, there's so many more of those.
We still haven't got to the bottom of it. We need to just get a big old detective chart out.
I know. Do a fairy family
clues.
tree. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, thanks for hanging out with us this week, everyone. And we'll be back next week with something from Lucy, and I have no clue what it is. So I'm looking forward to whatever that is. Hello. All right, we'll have a safe
gonna be spooky.
Week. Oh God. Okay. All right. Thanks. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.